It is the midway point of the NRL season, and with that comes reflection on the year so far. So today I thought I'd sit down and give each of the 17 teams in the competition a grading as to their performances so far, and talk a little about how I expect them to go to finish off the season. I'm expecting heaps of angry comments on this one about how I underrated the team that you like the most and overrated the team that you like the least. But hey, that's all part of the fun, so without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with the Titans in last place, predictably, this one has to be an F. I uploaded a short the other day from a live stream in which I rambled about the Titans. They just really frustrate me to watch, and that's coming from someone who is largely indifferent about them. I can't imagine how bad it must be for Titans fans. A 25% win rate is nowhere near good enough considering the side that they have on paper. But this free-flowing style of fullbacks in the halves simply hasn't worked. Their newly extended big money man in David Fafita is sitting in reserve grade, and unlike a lot of the other teams near the bottom of the ladder, I just struggle to see the direction in which they're trying to build. If even Des Hasler can't get grit out of this side, I just don't know where they turn to. Real soul searching to do for the Titans. The Eels sit in 16th place, and I've given them a D+. I had very high expectations for the Eels this year, but the injury to Mitchell Moses to start the season really hurt them. Their star halfback and captain has been limited to only 6 of their 13 games so far this year, and I do think that has really damaged their ladder position. They have looked a better side since he came back. I do see potential in the Eels, and their draw from here on out could be worse. But a 4-9 record is obviously very unimpressive. Even if they do manage to find more winning form, I do think the 8 is probably beyond their reach, given that I do expect a lot of the teams that are above them to improve from here. Moving into 15th, I've given the Knights a D-. The thing that's prevented Newcastle from getting an F is that they're somehow actually on a 5-8 record, which is not bad at all. They sit 2 points outside of the top 8, and if they could pull together their signature end-of-season run of form, they're unbelievably in the race for the finals. But make no mistake, I do think the Knights have been the worst side in the comp this year, at least at times. Their defense is actually quite impressive, but they've got comfortably the worst attack in the comp this season, a whopping 38 points lower than the next worst. They somehow still haven't figured out who their halves should be, with Jackson Hastings now back from the wilderness and expected to be recalled into the side this week. I really like the Knights, and I think a strong Newcastle side is great for the competition, but I just haven't been impressed with them so far this season at all. For the last of the bottom 4 sides, the Tigers, I've gone with a C+. Now let me preface this by saying that I'm pretty firmly on the Tigers bandwagon this year, and I do want to convince myself that they're on the up, which has probably influenced the grade that I've given them. They started the year really well with a winning record after 9 games, but 4 losses on the bounce since then has really hurt their ladder position, kickstarted by that infamous 64-0 loss to the Storm. Unfortunately for the Tigers, I do envisage more of the same to come, with the next 4 games being against the Raiders, the Seagulls away, the Roosters away, and the Warriors away. Comparing them to the base of their last 3 years, you'd have to say that this season is a step in the right direction. But that isn't a high bar to clear, and considering the side that they have this year compared to years gone by, you really do have to question whether sitting in the bottom 4 halfway through the season is good enough. In 13th is the first of the real big hitters, and I've had no choice but to give the Panthers an F. The Panthers have picked up 2 less than convincing wins against sides below them in the ladder in recent weeks in Parramatta and the West Tigers, which has left them with a 5-1-7 record, which is probably a little flattering. 2 weeks ago, they were in last place, which is just utterly unthinkable. This is a side who have spent the last half-decade at the very top, consistently defying significant talent departures to just continue winning. But this year, it has finally caught up with them. The start of this season has been just dreadful, really, and they would admit that themselves. I expected them to fall off a bit eventually, but nothing like this. Nonetheless, they are regaining some form and somehow only sit 1 point outside the top 8. That said, the next 2 games are against the Warriors and the Bulldogs, and their final month of footy contains games against the Storm, Raiders, and Bulldogs again. They can still make the finals, but it's going to take an emergence of the Panthers of old to do it. South Sydney are up next, and I've been very impressed with them this year, so despite their ladder position, I'm giving them an A-. Souths have just been ravaged by injury, and with that context, I think their 6-7 record is something to be very proud of. They're coming off a year in which they finished second last. In the offseason, their captain, Cameron Murray, did his ACL. The halfback that they spent very solid money on in Lewis Dodd simply hasn't found his feet, and their outside back depth has been tested as much as it ever has. But nonetheless, they have managed to do really well in just treading water. The tricky thing for them is their draw from here. Their next 7 games are Bulldogs, Storm, Dolphins away, Eagles away, Panthers away, Sharks, and Broncos away. They realistically need to pick up wins in 3 of those to remain in finals contention for the run home. That is very possible, but this is a period of the season that is going to define them. The Dragons are a side I felt would struggle this year, so 11th is enough to earn them a B+ in my books. I really rate Shane Flanagan as a coach, and what he's been able to do with what I consider to be quite notably the worst halves pairing in the comp this year has been pretty impressive. They've lost by 1 point on 3 occasions this year. If they'd won even 2 of those, they'd be outright 5th, ahead of the Sharks. The success for them this year comes in the form of unearthing guys like Toby Couchman, Loco Pacifici Tonga, Hamish Stewart, and even Dylan Egan before he did his ACL. The Dragons are a bit of a dad's army this year with guys like Cook, Gutherson, DeBellin, and Holmes, but they're doing a really good job of just keeping the side ticking over while the young guns come through. Their massive loss to the Dolphins last week was pretty concerning, and I don't think the Dragons have quite enough to make the 8, but it has been a very solid season so far for them. For my Roosters, in 10th, I'm giving them a B. Who's ready for some straight bias? No, okay, but seriously, I've been really content as a Roosters fan this year. This was always going to be a season about rebuilding, and I think that that's a process that we're doing really well at the moment. I mean, going through the youngsters that we've blooded this year, Rob Toya has played his way into Origin. Sandon Smith and Hugo Savala have built a really good combination. Celestia Fekete has missed only 3 games and won't even turn 20 before the end of the season. Blake Steep looks like Boyd Cordner reincarnate, and Nafahu White and Siwa Wong are already looking like real leaders in this forward pack, despite being 23 and 22 years old respectively. Not to mention debuting guys like Taylor Lazalu, Xavier Ba'a, and Benaya Yoelu. Given all that rookie development and the quality of the system that we seem to be building, I do think we deserve to be in the Bs. There's a stat that if games went for 60 minutes, the Roosters would actually be on top of the table. And while obviously they don't, so it doesn't mean anything in terms of results at the end of the day, I do think it counts for something given that this is such a young side. Sam Walker is back now, and as such, I expect us to be pushing for the top 8. In 9th place, just shy of the final spots, are the Eagles. They're a team that I had high expectations of, and as such, I've given them a D. The Eagles' record since round 7 is loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. It must just be so frustrating for Manly fans. I mean, 2025 is a season in which pretty much everyone has struggled to find consistency, but Manly really are the epitome of that. They could be our really top side in this competition, but they just haven't found a way to be on it. Injuries have been tough to deal with, and the form of Daly Cherry Evans since announcing his departure from the club has been fairly in the spotlight. But the bottom line is that the Eagles should be doing a lot better, and they themselves will be the first to admit that. Losses against the Knights and the Eels in recent weeks are 2 games that they really should have won, and if they had got results in those 2 games, they'd be sitting 5th. Time is running out for them to start playing consistently good footy this year. Into the top 8 teams now, and I've given the Brisbane Broncos a D+. I had high expectations for the Broncos coming into this year, but I do remember in my preseason predictions video saying that there would be a transition period between the coaching style of Kevin Walters and that of Michael Maguire. The weird thing is that they actually started the season decently well, but then fell off pretty significantly after the first quarter of the season. For them to still be in the 8 after looking very poor at times throughout the season is the positive for them. They have yet to be able to name the full spine of Walsh, Mam, Reynolds, and Hunt, which should be really impressive once they get all those guys together. Their massive win against the Titans last week was very impressive, and it was a return to the Broncos that I thought we'd see more of this year. But with games against 5th, 3rd, and 1st in the weeks following this bye, this is a really defining period for the Broncos, and I want to see what they can do. Moving on to the Dolphins, and I was a bit torn here, but I've given them an A-. The reason why the Dolphins are in the A's is that I expected them to be in the bottom 4 this year. They started the year with a heap of struggles, losing their opening 4 games. But since that point, they're 6 wins and 3 losses, displaying the same win rate that the Storm have had this season. The continued development of Isaiah Katoa has been an absolute highlight for them this year, and it's something that has me really excited for the Dolphins long term. I know as a game that we can't stop talking about Lachlan Galvin, but the best young half in this competition is Isaiah Katoa, and I will stand by that. It could be tricky for the Dolphins to keep their top 8 form up for the rest of the season, but they've scored 100 points in their last 2 games and have some very winnable games coming up. The Cowboys are in 6th place, and I might be being a bit generous here, but I'm giving them a B-. Despite sitting in 6th, the Cowboys actually have a losing record with 5 wins, 1 draw, and 6 losses. To give you an idea of how crazy that 6th place ladder position is, last year they had 6 wins and 6 losses, so a better record, and that was only good enough for 11th place. The reason why I have them in the B's is that I reckon that's still somehow impressive given how much they've changed their halves this year. They started with Duffy 7 and Dearden 6. They then moved Clifford into the halfback jersey, and now have Dearden 7 and Jackson Purdue at 6. To still be picking up wins given all of that is at least a little bit impressive. They've got serious work to do though from here on out. Teams like the Seagulls, Roosters, Rabbitohs and Panthers all sit just outside the 8, but within 2 points of them. I'm not particularly confident the Cowboys will make the 8 from here, but they definitely can. Next up is the Sharkies, and they're a bit of a tricky one, but I'm giving them a C-. 5th place on the ladder flatters the Sharks, who have a 7 and 6 record this year. I thought that the addition of Adam Fanua-Blake would really take the Sharks to a whole new level this year. The forward pack is where Sharks side of the past have traditionally struggled, but despite guys like Oregon Kaufusi really stepping it up this season, I've just been thoroughly whelmed by the Sharks this year. They are 2 wins outside the top 4, but they've only had 1 bye so far. They could string together a run of form and push into the top 4, but that said, their 40-10 loss at home against the Warriors last week was a massive warning sign to me, especially coming off a bye after conceding another 42 points to an Origin-depleted Sydney Roosters. The Sharks are underperforming to me and need to turn this around pretty quickly. Into the top 4 now, and we've got the Melbourne Storm, but despite their ladder position, I'm only giving them a C+. The Storm are an interesting one. I mean, it feels a bit harsh to say this about a top 4 side, but I do feel like they're underperforming a little bit. They were the best team in the comp last year, in my opinion, only losing 5 games throughout the entire regular season. But this year, in half the time, they've already lost 4. I picked the Storm to go very well this year, losing Christian Welch and gaining Stefano Utoikamanu. But while they are the best attacking team in the comp and the 2nd best defensive team in the comp behind the Bulldogs, I'm still somehow a little bit underwhelmed. I don't think they're quite playing at their best yet. Granted, I'm holding them to a very, very high standard, but they hold themselves to that standard too. At the moment, I still have them as grand finalists, but they're yet to show us that they can be the dominant side that we saw them be last year. For 3rd place on the ladder, we cross the Tasman, and Waz fans are going to be up and about because I'm giving them this video's first A+. Imagine someone telling you at the start of this year that we'd have a top 3 of Bulldogs, Raiders, and Warriors halfway through the season. It would have been almost unthinkable, but here we are. The Warriors have absolutely no business being in the top 4, and that is a testament to how well they are playing. They lost AFB, Sean Johnson, and Tohu Harris in the space of 1 offseason. That's playing group that had the entire soul ripped out of them, and yet they've rebuilt that in the course of 1 offseason. The young back row rotation they're blooding of Leka Halasima, Jacob Laban, and Dimitri Baimunga is absolutely unreal. I am so excited by those guys. Not to mention Luke Metcalf, who won an open race to the halfback jersey in the offseason and is now playing in Dally M form. The ACL injury to Mitch Barnett will massively hurt their premiership chances, but if Jackson Ford and Tanner Stowers-Smith can step up and fill that void, the Waz can go all the way this year. Heading into the top 2, for the Canberra Raiders, it has got to be back-to-back A+. I am so incredibly proud of the Raiders. For years now, they have embodied the notion that rugby league games aren't played on paper, and they're doing that more so this year than since 2019. It is incredibly exciting for me as a Canberra local. We often talk about the importance of spines in winning sides, but this team is proving that adage completely wrong. Weeks, Strange, Fogarty and Starling was rated as one of the weakest spines in the competition coming into this year. I know I certainly had them that low, but they are absolutely killing it. Their draw for the rest of this season too is very favorable. They have all 3 buys yet to come and only play one other top 8 side for the rest of the season, that being the Dolphins in the final round. The average current ladder position of the teams that they come up against for the rest of this year is 12.5. which is incredibly low. As long as they don't take the foot off the pedal and become content with easy wins against those sides, the Raiders are a genuine premiership threat. And finally, the team on the top of the ladder. I might be being a little harsh, but I've given them an A-. The Bulldogs are probably the best team in the premiership this year and have been able to find consistent wins in a year in which pretty much no one else has. They've got the best win rate in the comp, they've got the lowest points conceded of any team, and the system that they've built over the last 3 years is really reaping rewards. So why have I gone with A-? Well, reason one is I didn't want to end this video on 3 A+. But it's mostly that more so than with the Raiders and the Warriors, I'm holding the Bulldogs to the highest standard possible. I want the Panthers and Storm era to end this year. I want a fresh new premiership winner, and I think that the Bulldogs are the most likely team to do that. What concerns me is that when they're on, but they do sometimes have games that are a little bit hard to explain. They conceded 42 points to the Broncos and 44 to the Dolphins. I mean, hell, they even played the Titans twice and conceded 4 tries in each of those games. Don't take this as me putting the Bulldogs down. It is the exact opposite. I want to see them do well, and as good as they've been, I believe that they can do better. And I think that they would absolutely feel the same way. It's been a really good job so far for the Bulldogs, but let's see if they do have what it takes to win a premiership. So that's it. Bring on the comments saying that my opinion is wrong and that I should retire immediately. Now, but if you do disagree with me though, let me know why in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe, and if you didn't, let me know why so that I can improve for next time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.